Shalom to everyone. I'm Rabbi James Byers coming to you live from Winston-Salem. No, excuse me. Coming from Elmina, Ghana. Elmina, Ghana. Wow, it takes a little while to get used to this. But yes, we are over in the land of the sun, over in Africa, West Africa. And we'd like to say to everyone, thank you for joining us on another edition of Let's Talk Torah. Shalom, shalom. All right. So this evening, we are going to be going into Jeremiah chapter 14, Jeremiah chapter 14, followed by Matthew chapter 7, Matthew chapter 7. If you'll go ahead and grab your scriptures, open up, and we can get started. So Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 1. The word of Yahweh that came to Jeremiah concerning the matter of drought. Yehudah has mourned, and her gates has left. They have mourned on the ground and cried, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. And their nobles have sent their little ones for water. They went to the cisterns and find no water. They return with their vessels empty. They were put to shame and blushed and covered their heads because the ground became cracked, for there has been no rain in the land. The plowmen were put to shame. They covered their heads. Even the deer have given birth or gave birth in the field, but left because there was no grass. And while donkeys stood in the bare heights, they sniffed at the wind like jackals. Their eyes have failed because there was no grass. O Yahweh, though our crookednesses witness against us, act for your name's sake. For our backsliding have been many. We have sinned against you. O expectation of Israel, its Savior, in the time of distress. Why should we be like a stranger in the land, or like a traveler who turns aside to lodging? Why should you be as one who is stunned, as a mighty man that is unable to save? Yet you, O Yahweh, are in our midst, and your name has been called on us. Do not leave us, thus said Yahweh, to this people, so that, let's start that one, verse 10. Thus said Yahweh to this people, so they have love to wander. They have not restrained their feet. Therefore, Yahweh has not accepted them. Now he does remember their crookedness and punishes their sins. Wow. Let's continue. And Yahweh said to me, do not pray for this people for their good. When they fast, I do not hear their cry. And when they offer ascending offerings or burnt offerings and grain offerings, I do not accept them. Instead, I am consuming them by the sword, by the sacred, by scarcity of food, and by pestilence. Keep those three. By consuming them, or consuming them by the sword, scarcity of food, and pestilence. Let's continue. Verse 13. But I said, Master Yahweh, see, the prophets say to them, you are not to see a sword nor scarcity of food, for I give you truth, peace in this land. Then Yahweh said to me, the prophets prophesy falsehood in my name. I have not sent them, nor commanded them, nor spoken to them. They are prophesying to you in a false vision, worthless divination, and the deceit of their own heart. Therefore, thus said Yahweh concerning the prophets who prophesy in my name, whom I did not send, and who said, sword and scarcely a food shall not be in this land. By sword and scarcely a food, those prophets shall be consumed. And the people to whom they are prophesying, saying, be thrown out in the street of Jerusalem because of scarcity of food and the sword, with no one to bury them nor their wives, their sons nor their daughters, for I shall pour their evil on them. And you shall say this word to them, let my eyes flow with tears, and you shall say this word to them, let my eyes flow with tears night and day, and let them not cease. For the maiden daughter of my people has been crushed with a mighty blow, with a very severe wound. If I go out to the field, then see those slain with the sword. And if I enter the city, then see those sick from scarcity of food. For both prophet and priest go about in the land they do not know. Have you completely rejected Israel, Yehuda? Has your being loathed Zion? Why have you stricken us so that there is no healing for us? We looked for peace, but there was no good, and for the time of healing, but see fear, O Yahweh. We know our wrong and the crookedness of our fathers, for we have sinned against you. Do not scorn us for our name's sake, for your name's sake. Do not scorn us for your name's sake. Do not despise the throne of your esteem. Remember, do not break your covenant with us. Are there among the worthless idols of the nations any causing rain? And do the heavens give showers? Are you not he, O Yahweh, our Elohim? And we wait for you are the one who does all this. Hallelujah. This is serious. This is the southern kingdom of Babylon, who at this moment they are suffering, and Yahweh sends his army against Israel. Remember, keep in mind that the northern kingdom have already been taken by the Assyrians about 130 plus years prior. And so Israel, the southern kingdom, or Yehuda, is being warned, and Yahweh is very tired of the sins of his people. Is now pending, and Jeremiah has only come to warn Israel, the people. They're not hearing Yahweh. Why? Because there are false prophets who are prophesying against what Yahweh has said to tell Israel. Yahweh said to tell Israel that you will fall by scarcity of food, pestilence, and war, by those three swords. And you have the false prophets, verse 14. Then Yahweh said to me, the prophets prophesy falsehood in my name. I have not sent them, nor commanded them, nor spoken to them. They are prophesying to you a false vision, worthless divinations, and the deceit of their own hearts. So what they're saying, verse 15, concerning the prophets who prophesy in my name, whom I did not send, who says, sword and scarcity of food shall not be in this land. By sword and scarcity of food, those prophesying shall be consumed. I can think of the same scenario today that we are dealing with. You have people who are preaching a feel-good message. They don't want to tell you that Yahweh he is tired of the sins of the people. If my people were called by my name, he's not, they don't want to tell you that if we continue in sin, Yahweh will send his soldiers against Israel, and not only against Israel, but also against the nations. And a matter of fact, that's where we are right now. For those who just want to do the feel-good message, some people, they don't want to warn the people, so they will rather give you the good news. So the good news of you shall be blessed. You're the head and not the tail, and so they want to speak good things, and that's good. That's good. But if the nation needs to be warned, if Yahweh says, warn them against the pestilence, warn them against the sword, the famine, and you see the pestilence, the sword, and the famine come in the land, it's a warning that his words are true. And as his words are true, these things are taking place. Now, how long do you have? How long do we have? Well, when you see the warnings go, as we are seeing, there are major die-off. The scripture talks about 1/3 of the beast of the field, 1/3 of the trees, 1/3 of mankind, 1/3 of the animals, the trees. So when we see these things taking place, we should know that Yahweh is near. He is trying to get our attention to let us know. Revelation chapter 12 talks about Israel being gathered from the four nations, or four corners of the nations, and they will be taken to a place of safety. Now, in that scenario, Matthew chapter 25 lets us know that not all of Israel will make it during that time. They didn't take what was necessary. What is necessary? That we would do his desire. What is his desire? That we should keep his laws and his commandments, his right rulings. But it is the foolish who find it not necessary to continue in that, which also the nations are also led astray by that. We're no longer under the law. And so by this, they are mistaken, because there is a law that we will go into, the law of prophecy, when we get into Matthew. But we see it here as well. So when he says concerning the prophets who prophesy falsely to you in my name, this will be their judgment. And not only will they be judged, but also Israel will fall to the same thing. And so right here we can see that both the prophets and those who they prophesy to fall victim to the same judgment. And what is that judgment? Verse 15, by sword, scarcity of food, those who prophesy be consumed. The people to whom they are prophesying, listen to it, shall be thrown out in the streets of Jerusalem because of the scarcity of food, the sword, the famine, with no one to bury them. Wow. Them nor their wives, them nor their sons nor their daughters, for I shall pour their evil on them. Sound like Revelation, doesn't it? Yes. Revelation chapter 6 talks about the seals. Chapter 8 talks about the trumpets. Chapter 16 talks about the evil bowls that are being poured out on the nations. Why is it being poured out on the nations? Because you have had prophets who come and just want to do the prosperity message. They want to preach to you the feel-good message. Those having itching ears, right? They don't want to speak what is concerning Yahweh and what he is saying concerning judgment against the nations. And at this time, judgment is really not for the house of Israel. But will the house of Israel take part? Yes. The foolish will take part. And if you listen to this carefully, it even will say that the foolish takes part in this. When we get to Matthew, I think that that's going to come out a little more. Verse 19. So Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 19. Have you completely rejected Yehuda or Judah? Has your being loathed Zion? Why have you stricken us so that there is no healing for us? We look for peace. So isn't that what we are waiting for now? The millennial reign of peace, 1,000 years. We look for peace, but there is no good for the time of healing, but see fear. O Yahweh, 20. We know our wrong and the crookedness of our fathers, for we have sinned against you. Do not scorn us for your name's sake. Do not despise the throne of your esteem. Remember, do not break your covenant with us. So when they say, do not break your covenant with us, is that not also Israel who has broken the covenant with Yahweh? And then we say, do not break your covenant with us for your name's sake. For the throne, well, Yeshua will bring judgment on the nation of Israel, and those who are the foolish will take part in that. And then you also have not only the nation of Israel, the foolish, but you have all of the nations who also, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, right? So let's go ahead and we will conclude Jeremiah chapter 14 there. But keep in mind the false prophets who spoke falsehoods to Israel, and Israel was thrown out. And so as we move into the book of Matthew, let's go ahead and go to Matthew chapter 7. Now, as we look at Matthew chapter 7, let's go ahead and read through, and I may have to summarize. We'll see. Okay. We should be able to read through. All right. Do not judge. Verse 1. Do not judge, lest you be judged, for with the judgment you judge, for with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged. And with the same measure you use, it shall be measured to you. Now keep in mind the false prophets who prophesy falsely. So this is what Yahweh is saying here, but this is New Testament language here. Verse 3. And why do you look at the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not notice the plank in your own eye? Or how is it that you say to your brother, let me remove the splinter out of your eye, and see, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrites! First remove the plank from your own eye. That's what must be first. Then you shall see clearly to remove the splinter out of your brother's eye. Do not give what is set apart to the dogs, nor throw your pearls before the pig, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you in pieces. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds. And to him who knocks, it shall be opened. In other words, if you seek Yahweh, he can be found. Seek him while he can be found, right? When that time comes, when he cannot be found, it will be too late. Verse 9. Or is there a man among you who, if his son asks for bread, shall give him a stone? Or if he asks for fish, shall he give him a snake? If you then, being wicked, fathers that is, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more shall your Father who is in the heavens give what is good to those who ask, or who ask him? Therefore, whatever you wish men to do to you, do also to them. So here's the principle that he's speaking of. My mother would say it like this: do to others as you would have them do to you. Continuing, that's verse 12, verse 11. Verse 12, therefore, whatever you wish men to do to you, verse 12, do also to them, for this is the Torah of prophecy. And so I want to point that out. So keep that in mind, the Torah of prophets, okay? Because this is working from the last chapter and Jeremiah chapter 14, as well as Matthew chapter 7. Enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter in through it. Because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed, which leads to life, and there are few who find it. But beware of the false prophets, there it is, who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravaging wolves. By their fruit you shall know them. A grape gathered from, are grapes gathered from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? So every good tree yields good fruit, but a rotten tree yields wicked fruit. We'll come back to that. If you have false prophets, they're going to speak to you concerning falsehoods, and that will be their judgment, as well as those who listen and do what they speak to them. Verse 19, every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then, by their fruit you shall know them. Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, shall enter into the reign of the heavens, but he who is doing the desire of my Father in the heavens. We'll come back to it. Verse 21, remember, those false prophets and those who are foolish will come back at a later time Matthew chapter 25 and say, Master, Master, let us in. And he says, depart from me, you workers of iniquity, I do not know you. Okay, so that's what that is connecting to. Verse 22, many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied, there it is, in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done many mighty works in your name? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness. Those who say we're no longer under the law. Verse 24, therefore, everyone who hears those words of mine and does them shall be like wise men. Hint, hint, wise men. Do what? The words of mine. What are the words? My desire. What is my desire? My law or my Torah. Yahweh's desire. Shall be like wise men who built his house on rocks. And the rain came and floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. What is the rock? Yeshua HaMashiach is the foundation that was set before the world. So Yeshua HaMashiach, which is the word that became flesh, is the Torah incarnate. And if we take, he says, if you love me, keep my commandments. That's what we are looking at right here. For everyone who hear these words, 26 of mine, and does them shall be like, and does not do them, shall be like a foolish man, there it is, who brought his house or built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they built on that house, and it fell. And great was its fall. And it came to be, when Yeshua had ended these words, that the people who were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one possessing authority and not as the scribes. Notice how it says the scribes. Remember, the scribes are the ones who will write the Torah out, translate them into whatever languages that they are, written in or writing in. They're writing first, let's say, Hebrew, but then as a scribe, these also are being translated to all the languages of Israel or the nations. Shalom, Jeremiah. So good to have you in. Good to have you in. So as we, and others who are visiting, thank you. So glad to have you. So as we begin to break this down, chapter 7 is really full of the Torah of prophecy, or the Torah of prophets. Let me say it correctly. Verse 12, I'll read that again. Therefore, whatever you wish men to do to you, do also to them. For this is the Torah and the prophets. So the law and the prophets. So if this is the law of Torah, the law of prophets, whatever they speak will be their judgment, whether good, whether bad. As those who Yahweh said, I have not sent, that will be bad for them, because what they speak now is against them. But those who speak wisely, what they speak will work in their favor. You sow good, you reap good. There's a principle of the third day. You sow bad, you will reap bad. In other words, the third day principle, When Yahweh created the heavens and earth on the third day, when he divided the waters from dry land and up from the ground came vegetation. Now we also know that that was prophecy by itself, because Yeshua himself, being the grain offering, was planted into the earth. Remember, he was crucified and he was buried, yes, in a tomb, but in the earth. And on the third day, when did he say he would have risen? By the third day. Not that he rose on the third day. They went in on the third day and he was already gone. So the witness goes forth that by the third day he had rose. And so those who was trying to witness his demise, they were trying to guard against anyone trying to bring him into condemnation, first of the Sabbath and of the Hebrew brothers. Shalom, Pastor Ezra. Shalom, good to have you in. So as we continue with the Torah or the law of prophets, the law of his law, he says in verse 1, chapter 7, do not judge, lest you be judged. So there's that principle. What you speak will return. Okay? I don't know any better way. Sow and reap. Sowing and reaping. For with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged. And with the same measure you use, it shall be measured to you. So this is the kingdom of Israel, who have been spread throughout the nations, not understanding that the law is either with you or against you, depending on you, how you sow your seed. If you sow your seed in thorny ground with thistles, the thornies or the thorns and thistles are going to choke it out, because there's a principle that's at work here. The dry land, there's not enough water, or the sun comes out and scorches these seeds that now die because it's not enough death. So is this Israel, the foolish Israel, who say we don't need the law? Those who are people like your Joel Osteens or Creflo Dollar or others who say we don't need the Torah or we don't need the law. And so by the same measure that you measure, you shall be judged. And so when the time comes, as we read back in Jeremiah, listen, Yahweh don't need to send a bolt of lightning at that moment that they speak these type of atrocities. But in the time that he has prescribed, that he has said, I have a year of vengeance in my heart. He's not going to act because some person is speaking against him. He's going to judge all the nations. Now, truth is, he may judge that person, in quick succession, but he's not going to judge all the nations until the appointed time. And so let's continue. Verse 5 says, hypocrites, first remove the plank from your own eyes, and then you shall see clearly to remove the splinter out of your brother's eyes. So this one is equating it as, look, you got something huge in your eye, but you're trying to help your brother by saying you got a splinter in your eye. Let me remove it. He says, look, you are a hypocrite. First, 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 remove the huge plank from your eye. What is the huge plank? The huge plank is the law right here, the Torah and the prophets. This is huge in the eyes of those who say we are no longer under the law. We're no longer under those Old Testament prophets. That's a huge plank in your eye. He says, first, remove the plank from your eye, then remove the plank from your brother's eye. So in other words, if he is your brother and he has less of a splinter in his eye, you can see well enough to try to remove that. That means you are of the same family of Hebrews. So that splits it where you have the foolish and the wise, because the foolish, they are of the house of Israel. But what makes them foolish is believing that because they have a little bit of truth, a little bit of knowledge, they can help you. No, that it can't work like that. Verse 12 is against you. Whatever you say will then come against you. You prophesy good, good comes towards you. You prophesy bad, bad comes towards you. Verse 13, enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction. And there are many who enter in through it. Many who enter into destruction. And so those who are on the broad path, let's be real with it. The church, Christianity, is the broad path. Many enter into it. So the church, yes, they are of the house of Israel, but they are foolish because many have taught and received the message of no longer under the law. I tell you what, go up in an airplane and jump out without a parachute. Let's see, will you float or will you obey the law of gravity? So if that is the law, then that law will also help you. All right, so let's see. Pastor Ezra, go ahead and redo that same question, because right now it's behind the banner and I can't see the last part. Please, I can't see the other part. So if you reprint, it'll push it down to where I can see it. All right, so I'll wait to see that. So as we prophesy against what Yahweh has already prophesied, keep in mind the prophets who, let's see if I can. All right. Social community. All right. Shalom, shalom. All right. So I'm reading through now, trying to see. I know that. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Got it. Where is Ravis? She's not. She wasn't able to get on this evening. Sometimes I have to go back to just myself, due to time constraints and where we are kind of working in as a unit. Sometimes I have to go ahead and get this out, because on Sunday we'll go through. Let's see. Actually, on Tuesday we'll do a new Torah portion, and on Sunday we have a live group here, so we won't have time to do it on Sunday All right, good deal, good deal. Yes, sir, Jeremiah. So good to have you in. All right, so let's continue with chapter 7. Chapter 7. So he gives us multiple examples. Verse 17 says, so every good tree yields good fruit, but a rotten tree yields wicked fruit. There's the principle once again. If you sow good, you reap good. So if it's a bad tree, will it reap good? Can you reap good from that tree? No. So if it is a false prophet, he cannot prophesy to you good. Now, can he prophesy half truth? Yes. Can he read Yahweh's word and speak that to you? Yes. But somewhere along the way, what makes it bad for him is when he starts to interject his own thoughts. And that's what we saw in Jeremiah. He goes about with his own heart. Long as they stay on the path of what Yahweh is saying, it's all good. But the moment they turn and do a slight veer to the left or right, do not go to the left nor the right, then the problem comes against them. So what bad seed is planted, bad seed they will reap. So the principle extends in verse 18. A good tree is unable to yield wicked fruit. Let me read that again. A good tree is unable, that law right there, unable to yield wicked fruit, and a rotten tree to yield good fruit. So this is the law of prophets and Torah. Verse 19, every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So that's the judgment of fire that is to come. So remember when I said he's not going to send the fire on the whole earth because one prophet prophesies wrongly. But although he may deal with that person in the near future, but he's going to allow that person to continue to sow bad seed until he's ready to judge that person or persons. Until he's ready to judge the nations, many of them will continue to sow bad seed. All right, so verse 20. So then, by their fruit you shall know them. By their fruit, Yahweh knows them. 21. Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, watch this, shall enter into the reign of the heavens, but he who is doing the desire of my Father in the heavens. So if this is being spoken in this manner, he who is doing the desire of my Father, you know that this is Yeshua. So if Yeshua is saying right here, everyone who says to me, Yeshua, Master, Master, well, when will they say this? Chapter 25. Look at the principle that is work. Shall enter into the reign of heaven. But he who is doing the desire of my Father, which is in heaven. Our Father who is in heaven. Holy is your name. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, as we forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass us, and give us our daily bread. So there's a principle that in chapter 5 that is at work here. The Father who's in heaven, who hears the false prophets, he says, I know them by their fruit, verse 19 and 20. Then 21 says, and this is now Yeshua, who says, they say to me, Yeshua, Master, Master. Guess what? The Master is saying, I know them by their fruit. You have falsified my doctrine, my Torah, my law, my commands. So I know you by your fruit. Let's look at verse 22 and see how that continues. Many shall say to me, who's the me here? Yeshua. In that day, notice, in that day. That don't mean when he, so desire, but when that time of judgment comes, he will judge all people, all nations, whether good or bad, whether good fruit, bad fruit, good tree or bad tree. And what comes from the tree but the fruit? If you are a recipient of a bad tree, you have ample opportunity and time to make it back. But once judgment begins, if you have not searched diligently, he said, if you search diligently, you may what? Find him. If you have not searched for him with all your heart, soul, and mind, then guess what? The judgment is what it is. So let's continue. What will he say in verse 22? Master, Master, have we not prophesied, here's the law, in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done many mighty works in your name? Yes, they have. But what have they done along the way? They have interjected their own mind and their own thoughts. Shalom, Carrie. Wesley, so good to have you in. Good to have you in. Once they begin to veer off path and go into the direction of Israel, then it is Israel who are required to stay on the narrow path or find their way back to the narrow path. Because remember, it's the wide path that leads to what? Destruction. And you have many who go on that path. Verse 23, and then I shall declare to them, this is when they come later on, and they say, Master, Master, open up for us. I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them shall be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. Who is the rock? The rock is Yeshua. So if the rock is Yeshua, then we know that right there is, if you love me, keep my commandment. If you do not love me, then judgment will be against you, you who work lawlessness. Verse 24 clearly points out to who will win in the end. Those who do the law or his commandments, or who follow the prophets of old, shall be like a wise man who build their house on the rock. Who is the rock? Yeshua is the rock. Verse 25, and the rain came and floods came, and the wind came and beat on the house. Now that's flood, wind, rain. All of these, you have famine, you have the weather, you have, so these judgments come against you. But they, in verse 25, and it did not fall. The house did not fall. The wind blew, beat on the house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. The rock is Yeshua. And everyone who hears these words of mine, Yeshua, and does not do them shall be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they beat on the house, and it fell. So those who follow after the words of a foolish man, then in the time of judgment, the judgment also is against you. It says, and great was its fall. So if you speak against the Torah of Yahweh, if you speak against Yahweh's law, then the law is your judgment. That is the judgment of Torah. That is the judgment of prophets. Those whom he did not send, who tried to speak in their own behalf, the moment you veer off the path, have I not spoke and healed in your name? Have I not healed? Have I not fed in your name? He said, depart from me, those who work, those who are workers of lawlessness. Let's see. Let me see what you got over here, Wesley. Okay, I'll get back. You say you should. I'll get back to that, Wesley. I'll have to consider some of the thoughts you're having here. I'm not sure we're on the same page, but I'll check it out. Not enough time to read through everything, but I'll get back. So, verse 28, and it came to be when Yeshua had ended these words that the people were astonished at his teachings, for he was teaching them as one possessing authority, where? In heaven and in the earth, not as the scribes. So the scribes are those who were writing the Torah, the scribes and priests who began to veer off the pathway of Torah. And many who began to say they are, we are no longer under the law. They would misinterpret people like Paul, who would say things that Peter said, twist the Torah to their own demise. And so what we have now is that these are people who are following after the words of those who begin to teach their own intellect, their own thoughts. And so Yahweh is saying, my law is against you, my prophets who are sent. I stand by my word, and they bring you my word. But the moment you start interjecting your own thoughts, your own way, going away from Yahweh's thought or his thought pattern, then that becomes yours, not Yahweh. And so you will become like the man who said, did I not prophesy in your name? Did I not heal in your name? And he's saying, I do not know you. You shall not enter the reign of heaven. And so when the reign of heaven comes on earth, when shall that be? It's beginning now. The kingdom of heaven is coming to earth. And so what we see, as I bring this to a close, is the Torah of truth as we begin to awaken in the U.S., the U.K., Jamaica, the Caribbean islands, the diaspora, period. As we begin to awaken, we begin to realize that we've been lied to. They say that we're no longer under the law, but it is your law that stands to this very day. And so, with that said, don't let it be said to you, depart from me. Matthew chapter 25, for I don't know you. Let's actually, before I close out, I know I said it more than once, but let's go there and we'll close out with Matthew. Let's see, Manasseh. Every king has a law, and where there's no law, there is lawlessness. Very good scripture. That is correct. Pastor Ezra, that is correct. Matthew chapter 25. And let's see if I can spot it real quick where he says, just give me a quick second. Yeah. All right. Matthew chapter 25. I'll read verse 1 so we can see that this is the millennial reign that he's talking about. Then the reign of heavens shall be compared to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. So this is a particular time that when the bridegroom comes, that they are out there to meet him. Verse 2, 5 of them were foolish and 5 wise. So there's the foolish and the wise. Let's look at the difference. Those who were foolish, having taken their lamps, took no oil with them. What is the oil? The oil, the root word of oil is ora, which is the root of menorah. Menorah is light, the lampstand or menorah. And in the word of lamp translated, or menorah translated to lampstand in the Hebrew or in the English, the light that is produced by the oil and the light, he is saying that those who took no oil or extra oil did not have the Torah of law or prophets saying we're no longer under the law or the prophets, old and antiquated. He says, the foolish, having taken their lamps, took no oil with them. Now, let's explain that. Verse 4, but the wise took oil in their containers with their lamps. So that's really what it's explaining. They took oil in their lamps and extra oil in their containers. What is the extra oil? The extra oil is the wisdom of the oil or the lamp or the menorah, which is the light of Torah, the light of the prophets of old. Remember, this is a law. And so it cannot be changed. If you stand on that principle, it is wise. But if you say we're no longer under that, then it is foolish. All right, let's continue. Now, while the bridegroom took, verse 5, took time, they also slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, see, the bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him. So I think this part of his coming is in two. I think as a witness of the Holy Spirit within me, I believe that this is two parts. The time of his coming is set for a particular year, which is vested, verse 1. The reign of heavens So if this is the reign of heaven, this is talking about his coming. And so he's given us a viewpoint of what he says. So verse 5 is a viewpoint of what he sees with the foolish and the wise. I know them by their fruit, right? So the wise, I know them by their fruit as well. So as they sow good fruit or good seed, I know them. Their names are written in the book of life, the Lamb's book of life. Verse 6, and at midnight a cry was heard, see, the bridegroom is coming. So we have the bride. The whole house is there in verse 1. But then there's something that takes a division of the whole house. It becomes foolish and wise. So let's look at verse 6. The bridegroom is coming, go out to meet him. Then all those maidens who rose up and trimmed their lamps, so they're all still there. So the bridegroom, he sees the kingdom. The cry says, he is coming. They're all there. They rose up, they trimmed their lamps. So something is taking place right here in their preparation. Remember Passover, the day of preparation. So I see them trimming their lamps as the day of preparation. Verse 8, and the foolish said to the wise, I told you they were still all together, give us of your oil, because our lamps are going out. So they only had oil in their lamps. So there's the divide right there. The foolish didn't bring extra oil, where the wise had oil in their lamps. They both had oil in their lamps. But the wise took a container to refuel. And what is that container? Menorah, lampstand, or light, wisdom. Let there be light, understanding, enlightenment. That's what the lampstand represents. If you do not keep my commands, I shall take away your lampstand. What happened? Israel had their lampstand taken away. What is the lampstand in the immediate family? Every family has a lampstand, which is the husband who's supposed to be the lampstand. How many husbands have been taken out of the home? If you do not keep my commands, I shall return and take away your lampstand. The lampstand is the husband who's supposed to bring light, leading his family. But once the lamp has been doused, he leaves his family vulnerable unless she then takes up the mantle, and it can be done. Okay, so verse 9, let's look at verse 9. But the wise answering, saying, no, indeed, there would not be enough for us and you. Instead, go to those who sell and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. And later the other maidens, virgins came, saying, Master, Master, chapter 7, open up for us. But he answering said, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch, therefore, because you do not know the day nor the hour in which the Son of Adam is coming. And so there is a piece that we should know. What is the day or the hour? We know every year when the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Yom Teruah, or Atonement, the Feast of Sukkot. We know every year when that comes, because it's a time that we look for the lighting of the new moon. But no man knows the day nor the hour that we shall see the new moon. But every year we know when to begin looking. And so scripturally, he gives us signs and seasons, which is in the book of Genesis, to know when to know these things. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1 says, I have no need to write to you, my brothers, about signs and seasons, for you know very well. What do we know very well? Signs and seasons. So the signs tell us when to begin looking, and the seasons come once a year that we shall begin our search. The 7 feasts speak concerning his return. So if the 7 feasts from Passover to Sukkot, and so if you don't keep these feasts, no matter where we are in our time, it's about the obedience. Remember, all of Israel may not agree on the calendar, but what we do agree sets us apart. And what I mean is this: we all keep the Passover, unleavened bread, first fruit, Feast of Weeks, trumpets, atonement, Sukkot. We all do that. And that's what we're required to do. So if we love him, he says, do this. That is his desire. What is his desire? That you do my Father's will, right? What is his will? That we all come into repentance. Where do we find repentance in the scenario? The day of Yom Kippur, the day of Yom Kippur, the day of trumpets is the calling of the bride. Yom Kippur is the cleansing of the bride. After we have repented, we are cleansed, and we wait for him to come and receive us. Once he receives us, the door is shut, according to what we just read. So I think that pretty much brings us to the conclusion of the law of prophecy and the law of his Torah. So unless we speak concerning his Torah and return to the old path, you will be stuck. For those who are saying, did I not, teach in your name, preach in your name, lay on hands in your name, feed in your name? He's going to say, depart from me. I don't know you. I don't know you. Those of you who workers of lawlessness. Don't be one of those, but be one who says, you know what? I'm going to be wise to keep his commands and walk by the commandments. So that's all I have for you this evening. Thank you once again for everyone who has followed us on another edition of Let's Talk Torah. I am Rabbi James Byers. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, Pastor Ezra and Jeremiah and others. Thank you for coming in, for everyone who was on this evening.